Traditional creches and churches and public squares galore. But on this feast of the Epiphany, we do well to step back and see this familiar scene with fresh eyes, letting grace seep into our hearts to enlighten the glorious mystery of this moment. As grace finds its way in, how can we help but exclaim, "This is amazing. Can we believe what we are seeing?" Shepherds were going about their same old daily work until they unexpectedly came upon a tiny babe, and parents who seemed tired, perhaps even terrified, and utterly amazed at the little life before them. Something reminiscent of Isaiah's words in today's first reading echoed in them, as their hearts throbbed and overflowed with joy and wonder in the presence of one the likes of whom they had never encountered before. In the words of an anonymous believer, "Blessed are you, Christmas Christ, that your cradle was so low that shepherds, poorest and simplest of earthly folk, could yet kneel beside it and look level-eyed into the face of God." Imagine that. They experienced love like never before, a grounding, empowering, gentle love that said, "You count for something in this world." These poor, simple people who dared not consider themselves important. But they were here, and God was visiting them, and their hearts and their worlds would never be the same again. And then we see the Magi, those three sojourning wise men looking for the new king of the Jews, expecting to find one in finery, protected by privilege and power and pride. But to their amazement, surprised by grace, they found themselves in the presence of a vulnerable babe whose parents were his only guardians, except the poor shepherds who were privileged to keep vigil and pay him homage. Can you imagine what was happening in their hearts? The bewilderment, the disorientation, the amazement, the joy. This was hardly what they expected, but it felt so right as their hearts too throbbed and overflowed. They were astounded and confounded in the presence of a very different kind of king, one surrounded by rich and poor, by wise and unlearned, by Jews and Persian Gentiles. Was this vulnerable king signaling a new world order, transforming the way things had been to something they could become? These shepherds and wise people were seeing and hearing something that generations before had never known, as Paul says in his second reading. Newer generations, too, would hear and see and feel new things in the presence of this vulnerable babe. And here we are today, a new generation. When the light of the Epiphany sears our souls, it also casts a beam of light across and beyond any horizon that we've imagined before, calling us to a new vision. Yes, our days are punctuated by normal, everyday common doings. But when we make space for God's grace to inhabit us and soak through to the depths of our hearts, we are amazed and drawn out of our everydayness to see and do the unimaginable. God's light will show us amazing possibilities for our world. Poor and rich, women and men, young and old, working together for a more just and gentle world. Jews and Gentiles, yes, but also Muslims and Christians and Buddhists and nuns and unbelievers, recognizing that all of us are on a common journey towards life and love and meaning. Churches where women and men will share equally in the life of worship and discernment and authority. Churches where laity and ordained work as partners and co-creators of a community where all are welcome. People of every shade and color, speaking a multitude of languages, gay and straight and searching, vowed religious, single, married and divorced, the lost and the forgotten. A world of official leaders and common citizens uniting to reverse climate changes that threaten the very life of our planet. A world where borders that block people from moving towards safety and dignity and family reunion will be dismantled. Difficult? Yes. Impossible? No. Not if we let the light and spirit of this small and vulnerable babe penetrate our hearts, allowing us to see beyond the darkness of our too small worlds, the shrunken horizons of our own making. It is not impossible if we are faithful to our everyday calls as the shepherds were, and ever ready to travel to new and wider horizons like the sojourning Magi. It is not impossible if we trust that God reaches us to see the inside of our lives, the inside of our daily realities, where the power of God is at work, always beckoning us to go deeper and to go forward. In the words of William Blake, to see the world in a grain of sand and a heaven in a wild flower, hold infinity in the palm of your hand, eternity in an hour. Let this be our Epiphany prayer. Amen.